Today, as people get tired of being trapped in their homes, let's talk about cars.
Then, for a more virtual escape, what's going on with VR? Lots, it turns out.
And the strange changes going on at Crisis Text Line. Turns out they're in a crisis all their own.
I'm Alexa Scordato, and this is Future Forward.
I am Steven Rosenbaum. Let us launch. You know what occurred to me just before we get started? You know, we presume that everyone knows who we are, they Google us, but I just thought it would be good just to do a super quick individual bio, just to bring our new audience members up to speed. I'm Steven Rosenbaum. I'm the managing director of the NYC Media Lab, which is a consortium of New York universities and corporate members, which you can check out at nycmedialab.org. And before that, I did 5 startups, some of them fabulous, some of them kind of smoking hole in the ground, but I guess that's the deal. And if you go way, way back, I did this show on MTV back in the day called Unfiltered, which you could either give credit or blame to a lot of what's happened in user-generated video since that time. Alexa, go.
My name is Alexa Scordato, and I run marketing at Glitch, which is a software company based in New York, even though we are now fully distributed. We help developers go from idea to code in seconds. So we are a cloud-based development environment. We help people make apps on the web. I'm a software tech SaaS, startup junkie, I guess, and have spent over a decade building, scaling marketing teams, and I'd say also spent the last 5 or 6 years working remotely. And so it's cool to be living during a time of COVID when everyone is sort of now drinking the Kool-Aid that I have sort of been sipping on profusely for a long time.
Yes, mostly I find remote fun and kind of inspirational. And then there are days where I'm like,
I miss people.
I want to have coffee. I miss the let's have coffee.
I mean, we wouldn't have the relationship we have if we were working if we had never met in person.
No, it's really true. Someday we should talk about our shared evolution, but we won't do that today. By the way, huge shout out to our friends at IEEE Spectrum, a fabulous magazine published by IEEE, the Society of Engineers, super smart, and we often get really good editorial advice from them. So today we have a show in 3 chapters. Chapter 1, we're going to talk about cars. Chapter 2, we're going to talk about VR. And Chapter 3, we're going to talk about Crisis Text Line. But before we get to that, we've got to start with how the kids screwed around with the Trump rally.
This was my favorite story of the week. So if you missed it, supposedly TikTokers, specifically what they call K-pop stans. So if you're not familiar with a stan, it's basically like a fan. It's like a fandom of diehard supporter. K-pop stans, BTS fans, made the Trump campaign staff think that there were going to be north of 1 million people attending the rally. So much so that they built an overflow stage outside. And it turns out that on Saturday, there were, I think, maybe 100,000 people or less. So just a fraction of ticket holders who actually wound up going.
So here's the thing. You and I have both run events. And you sit there, you put up an event, and then the emails start coming in, and you can put as many questions. So what these kids did, and I happen to know 2 of them who did it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're super proud. You go and say, I want to join, I want a ticket, and then you fill out and there's a checkbox and all this stuff, and you have to say, yeah, well, I'm not going to sue you for COVID. But if you're on the receiving end of that mailing list, you can be the best technologist in the world and build the most sophisticated checker of, is this a real person? Are they really going to show up? Is it a fake name? At the end of the day, if you've got 1 million inbound names and email addresses, you presume that, I don't know, maybe 20,000 of them are bogus, maybe 30. But what Brad Parscales did was underestimated what happens when you piss kids off.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know because I didn't sign up for tickets, whether or not it was a 5-minute sign up or a 30-minute sign up. But it was like even if he said, I'm going to fix it, well, this will never happen again. We're going to double verify with a phone number with something. I think if people decide they want to, troll your registration, they're going to do it.
Totally. I mean, and the thing is, it's not like they wrote a script to sort of auto-generate registrations. It was actual people going in and typing in information. So even if it was like a phone number verification, they could have used burner numbers.
So just not to be in defense of Trump, which I'm absolutely not, but here's the other thing. They moved the location. So you move the location, which means, and they moved the date, which means anyone that had planned to take a day off or had a car, you have to physically get there. So people don't just magically transport her into Tulsa, and then you need a place to stay, assuming you're getting there the night before. So there's no hotel rooms, right? So I don't know what they were thinking that they were going to fill. By the way, what does BOK stand for? The BOK Center, B-O-K.
I don't know.
Well, it was supposed to. We'll Google it as we get on with the show. But anyway, long and short of it is, I think that even without the fabulous kids' work, people were like, "Let me get this straight. I got to go on a different day. If I wear a mask, then I don't feel like a Trump supporter, so I can't wear a mask. I'm signing a piece of paper saying I'm not going to sue the Trump campaign if I get sick, because the only reason you ask someone to sign a liability waiver is if you think there's a not unreasonable chance they might get sick. And then you got the news of the day before, 7 of the Trump's advanced people had COVID. So they've been wandering around touching things and, shaking hands and doing all their, so net, they shot, I don't know how many feet you can shoot yourself in if you're the Trump campaign, but they shot many feet.
Yeah. I mean, I think the original date was Juneteenth, which would have been bad for a lot of reasons, but yeah, it was a perfect storm of things going wrong. Not what they expected.
And then on top of it, and this makes me feel a little bad for him, think about all the greatest hits that he just can't really use anymore. Like, he really wants to chant, "Lock her up." And the crowd wants to echo back, "Lock her up," because it just has such good cadence. Of course, it turns out to be utter bullshit. And the person that is going to get locked up is Flynn, who invented "Lock her up." So you can't do "Lock her up." So you scratch that one. He must sit there with the big Sharpie and make a list of all of his favorite, and can't really go after Obama because it turns out the numbers really say that's probably a bad idea. You can kind of graze, Biden a little bit, but, and then there is the issue of the fact that he can't walk down a ramp or hold a glass of water. So, I mean, it was, I went into the day thinking it was going to be a rock'em sock'em, very Trumpian thing. And it was not. And it was not.
It was not. Oh, I found out what BOK is, by the way.
What?
It's Bank of Oklahoma Center.
Bank of BOK.
Yeah.
Okay. Bank of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. So it's not like a Chinese food restaurant delivery thing.
No, it's not like bok choy or something.
That's literally what I thought. I'm sure the people at the Bank of Oklahoma are so happy with the marketing. All right. So with that, by the way, we are live on both Facebook and YouTube. So if you have comments or questions, you can feel free to chat with us. And hold on. There's a slew of them. Oh, okay. See, people are helping out. This is great. Bernie Gershon says 6,000 people showed up, according to Tulsa.
Oh my gosh, I'm way off. It's not even close to 100,000.
Simon Cavaletto says BOK stands for Bank of Oklahoma. Thank you very much, Simon. To which Bernie agrees. And Alexi says Bank of Oklahoma. Yeah, Bank of Oklahoma. And all right. So with that, let's get in. Let's jump to the fun stuff and let's do cars, shall we? So let's just start right at the beginning with BMW. So BMW and Mercedes-Benz are ending their long-term relationship. This is very sad. Slight sarcasm. They've been at it for a year. how do you know in a year that the chemistry is so bad that you literally have to put a bullet in and walk away? What could have happened in the meetings and conference rooms that would have made them decide this is not going to work?
I know plenty of New York City-based relationships that have turned out sour
in a year. In a year, I don't mean a personal.
That there are plenty of relationships just in the last 3 months during COVID that have gone south.
Yeah, but I have this is a serious question, because think about the amount of prep work and legal work and negotiating and like that it took. And we're going to get to Tesla in a minute, because obviously, on the high-end luxury car market, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche. Who am I missing? Lamborghini, but not really. By the way, I'm not a car guy, but I do have to say,
I'm also not a car person. I think it's hard to be a car person when you're living in a city riding the subway.
When we lived upstate, I did own a BMW Series 5, and I'm not going to lie, I loved it very much.
No.
Not as much as I love my children or my wife or my dogs, but it was in that panoply of love. It was part of the family.
I mean, I think again, without sort of knowing all of the details and the nuances, it did make sense to me to have two large entities team up, because for me, we see this all the time with airlines. Like there you have like the Star Alliance, you have the One World Alliance. Like you have there's a precedent for doing this kind of thing.
Okay, but to be fair, all those alliances are kind of code sharing deals with, you think you're on American Airlines, but it turns out you're on Air Canada because they swapped a route, or that, the frequent flyer miles cross-pollinate. But they had to actually put engineers in a room together. And it must have been staggeringly horrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know that we had any high hopes that there was going to be some magic thing that would come out of Mercedes BMW, but it is dead. It was announced in July of 2019 and killed in June of 2020. So not even really a year. I mean, year-ish. All right. Let's move on to Tesla. There's two stories in the Tesla world that interest me. Oops, it got really dark. Sorry. I'm going to open a window so you can see. You talk about Petersen for a second. I'll be right back.
So Tesla's Cybertruck is actually at the Petersen Auto Museum this weekend. And so there are links in the show notes. But if you actually look at the photos of this truck, I can't actually tell if the aesthetic is really futuristic or it's actually like a modern day version of like the Back to the Future car. Like that's actually what I thought of when I first saw it. Anyway.
It does seem like it wants a machine gun mounted on it.
Right?
Yeah. But here's what's weird. They're gonna debut at the Petersen Automotive Museum in LA, which is kind of a famous museum, but it's going to be there for 3 days, or June 20th to June 26th only. So, first of all, is there not a pandemic in LA? Maybe it somehow skipped the Petersen Museum. I mean, I guess are venues open?
I didn't even realize that museums could open, but again, California is one of the states now, one of the 21 states that actually has an increase in new COVID cases. So who knows?
But, and I don't know what the tickets cost. It's not free. That being said, if I were in LA and I had spare time June 20th to 26th, I think I would go. I think I would
just scope out Jay Leno's garage.
Yeah, he is a car guy. It is true. All right, but this is not the Tesla story that caught my eye, even though this one is strange and kooky. It's easy to let Elon kind of float above some of the terrible stuff he does because he is rock star brilliant, and that's important, and we like that. But then there's this, which just made my head hurt. This is from TechCrunch. They informed their employees on Juneteenth that they could take the day off as an unpaid holiday.
Yeah, this is my reaction.
So like, just so we're clear, we're going to tell you to go fuck yourself, not once, but twice. We're going to say, A, you can take the morning at 8 a.m. when you're about to go to work, we're going to tell you you can take the day off. So really you have no time to plan and fuck you. And then we're going to take it off unpaid. So that's pretty generous of us. Like, so we can say we gave the day off in case the press wants to paint a smiley face on it, but it really is the opposite of good. It's bad.
So what do you think is worse? This move, like go ahead, take a paid day, unpaid day, or what Amazon did, where they said, you can't take a day off, but we're going to give you chicken and waffles.
Seriously? Is that true?
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
No, stop. I don't want to believe that it's true. They just couldn't source enough watermelon to make it fully insulting.
Hold on. I need to.
Yeah. Please find it. Can you share your screen? Because I have to see it. That's, for a company that's got a fairly serious understanding of how to do, that's just madness.
Yeah, I mean, again, maybe it's just this one location in Chicago, but I think the optics, like everything about this headline, again, the Tesla one, I said, you know what, I think I'm just gonna go away for the weekend and decompress.
If you can put it in the chat, I can pull it up too. Yeah. There's a shared screen thing, but I'm not sure how to hand it to you and then get it back.
Did you get?
No, one of our listeners, Simon, has already gotten it. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah.
But I want to figure out. So how do can I click on that? No, probably not. Anyway, I thought I could actually. Still learning about live. Still figuring this stuff out. All right. So here's what I don't get. I mean, Musk does bad things. He's kind of pro-Trump. He's kind of anti-government. But then he builds rockets, and the rockets are awesome. And you're like, okay, I'm going to give him a pass because he is who he is, but also he builds rockets and really beautiful cars. And then he does stuff like this, and you're like, wait, I forgot. That's kind of a terrible thing. So chicken, I don't even know what to say. All right. Let me see if this. Oh, there. I will figure out how to do this.
I mean, he's in a category of leader that reminds you of Steve Jobs, where it's like brilliant, but also an asshole. So. Yeah.
Let's save Jobs bashing for another day because, A, he's dead, and
we have to talk about the hey.com thing next week. That's
which
story.
Which?
The hey.com email fiasco.
Yeah, I read it. I didn't understand it. Well, you need to teach it to me offline, and then we can decide how to talk about it. But that does bring us rather nicely to chapter 2 and VR. So it seems to me like at first blush, VR was going to be the thing, right? I mean, everyone's at home. They need a way to connect. They need new devices. Wouldn't they just be selling like crazy? Wouldn't this be the moment that they would just blow out the doors and be? And it turns out there's a bunch of reasons why that's not happening. And this is an article from Mobile Health News. The headline says, despite hiccups, COVID-19, it's VR's time to shine. That may be true, but the data doesn't back that up. So maybe not the right headline to launch into our VR rant. But I did, by the way, go online to think about maybe buying one for research purposes. And they're all sold out. Mm-hmm. Everything's sold out.
Oh, interesting.
Now, they're starting to come, and the answer somebody told me, which makes good sense, is a combination of supply chain issues, things going on with manufacturing in China, shipping shutting down, I mean, in order to, and frankly, soft enough consumer demand pro-COVID that even if you woke up the day after you were locked in your apartment and said, I got to have a VR headset, if you want to turn on manufacturing and supply chain, you need a couple things to happen. One, you need there to be people to manufacture it, mostly in China, and then you need shipping containers. Then you need to get to a port, and then you need to get to the U.S., and then you get to retail. So I don't know when you push that button, I don't know how long that is, but it's certainly easily 3 months and maybe 6.
So we've kind of talked about it in the past. So when we think about VR's time to shine, what are the use cases that most excite you about this technology in particular?
Well,
like assuming you had to kind of sell or market VR, like who are you talking to and why are you telling them that they need to get one of these headsets?
All right. So in a fantasy world, I'm fairly zoomed out, which I am. And so the idea that I could put on a headset, see you and 3 or 4 of my colleagues in a room, have a whiteboard, be able to hand the pen back and forth, like the idea that there could be some more pleasant virtual meeting experience seems to me potentially lovely. That being said, depending on how sensitive you are to motion sickness, that would make meetings very short, which could be good. 10-minute VR meeting, and then I'm going to have to get off or I'll throw up. Like that would seem to be like an effective way to keep meetings short. That being said, the truth is what I expected would have exploded would have been gaming. And with the caveat that the one device that seems to be winning at least the hearts and minds of gamers, and we'll get to this one in a second, is Oculus Quest.
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting though, like the game of COVID, you'd say is Animal Crossing, which is on the Switch. And like as a console, I don't know about you, but like the Switch has been impossible to get like for a really long time. And so it feels to me though that like it's the average gamer, even a casual gamer, it's like they're just, I don't know, like it's too hard to make the leap.
Well, let's loop in the Apple story because it's relevant, and then we'll get back to what things we would play if we could play. So Apple has two headlines that came out 2 days ago. One is that their VR headset now seems to be on the horizon. It has a date. I don't know that it's been confirmed by Apple, but the rumor mill seems to agree and I didn't know Apple was building a VR headset. And then Apple's VR glasses are still further out.
Are you optimistic about this?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think if you look back to the iPhone, Apple, or before that, the iPod, there are a bunch of people waiting for digital music to take off. There are a bunch of people that had things out there. Someone gave me a Zune and I gave it back. And generally speaking, at least historically, what Apple's done is not been first, but been midway into a product cycle where no one's gotten it right, either aesthetically or electronically, and they've won. And so, I have been I don't know, somewhere between an investigator and a hobbyist on a lot of these things. I mean,
did you ever try the Snapchat glasses?
Yes.
Did you like them?
No.
So I liked them for
aesthetics.
It wasn't for me, but I did like the idea of like if I was cooking or something, actually being able to make content. That was really from my first person point of view.
Somewhere around this office, if I poked around, I could find and show you my now classic Google Glass product, which some of the listeners will remember. I talk about the fact that I loved owning them. I loved wearing them. I loved people coming up to me on the street for about, 6 weeks, a month. And then I remember becoming a glass hole. And it happened like a light switch. Like these things are not cool, and I am not wearing them ever again.
Yeah. I think the best application for me is if you are driving it is really awesome to think of having directions in your line of sight.
Oh, no. There's a million things that AR should make better. Mm-hmm. Repair, travel, cooking. The use cases are at least philosophically legendary. But until you've got hardware that people are willing to wear, not so much.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else to say about VR other than the summer is not over, and I guess you can now order Quest. Is that right? Does anyone know? I mean, I'd like to think that there might be a Quest in my future for research purposes.
Maybe if you get one, let me know. Maybe I'll join you, and then we could record in a virtual studio, Steve.
You know, that is going to happen. That is going to happen. All right. So last chapter, which is by far the weirdest, strangest one, is chapter 3, crisis text line. And let's start with, like, what do you know about crisis text line?
I actually knew very little until this story broke, and it sort of like hit during a week when everyone was kind of getting canceled, right? It was like the Bon Appetit like story, the who is it, the Refinery 29 story, but I know people who know Nancy, and it like was very surprising.
So your people who know Nancy told you they didn't feel this way, or no comment?
They were surprised. Like they did not know that this was a thing.
All right, so let's roll it back. So crisis text line, it is, as an organization, awesome. What they really figured out, and I know just a little bit about them, I saw them speak at a conference years ago, was that young people needed someone to talk to if they were in a crisis, and that crisis, could be suicide, it could be drug abuse. There's a whole list of things that kids didn't have a way to get help for, and they literally set up a text support community for young people to ask for help and get it. And it turns out, as won't surprise you, it's very hard and dangerous and scary, because you take responsibility. If somebody texts you and says, "I'm thinking of hurting myself," that's not something you can take casually if you're an organization. So the woman who ran it was, I met her once and had a brief conversation with her, and I'd be wrong if I didn't say that I found her prickly. Like, I wasn't like a fanboy. I wasn't trying to get her autograph. It was in a small room with a bunch of tech people, and it was one of those things where I was talking to her and she was clearly looking over my shoulder to see if there was someone with more money or more something like, and it's not the first time that's happened to me in my life, but it was unusual enough that I remember it to this day. That being said, what happened in Crisis Tech Line is essentially the employees rose up and, as a community, said to the board of directors, it's her, or, we can't work for her.
Right. And then there were stories that surfaced going all the way back to when she was the CEO of DoSomething.org.
And just so we don't leave the audience in the dark, give us an example of, like, one of this. This is a rather lengthy report by The Verge that's well written, and then we'll put the link in the notes. But like, what were examples of, like, it wasn't sexual harassment, right? It wasn't like one of those, but it was obviously serious enough that she was fired.
Yeah, I mean, there's like complaints around microaggressions or promoting white staff when they were less experienced compared to people of color who were more experienced, even firing employees. So it sort of was just a pattern over several data points over a long period of time that in aggregate basically said that there was racism at the top.
So I think the point of this, and the reason I want to talk about this story is a couple of things. I don't think this is going away. I think if you are the leader of an organization and you're not understanding that the world's tolerance for certain kinds of behavior is over, it's not going to bounce back. It's not like this is just a passing trend. It's not like Black Lives Matter or inclusion in tech or any of these things are going to just like be, put a button on it. Okay, well, that was a month. We're done. Like this is, I believe we're going to see this theme as a center point of how these companies need to restructure themselves. And I think that, just to be blunt, the problem isn't just in technology. It goes all the way back to education. It's how do we recruit more women? How do we recruit more people of Black and brown developers and Black and brown engineers and Black and brown, and how do we find them, support them, build an atmosphere where they feel respected and listened to? And then, one of the things I read during on social media over the last couple of days was somebody said, don't post phrases about your belief in Black Lives Matter. Post a picture of your board of directors. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. So what they're saying is we don't give a shit about your vote of support. We actually want to see what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I if you read the article, there are many instances where I think employees tried to say something and there was sort of either a head nod or a denial, right? Like an example used was a promotional video where there were three figures and the person of color was supposed to be represented by Nancy, which seemed misleading. And so an employee actually said, it's like really insensitive and a little bit tone deaf. We take issue with this type of false representation. And it wasn't seen as like a formal complaint. Instead, it was sort of like, well, we're trying to be diverse and inclusive, and this is our image. And like, would you rather have like 3 white people in the video? Which is just like the opposite. That's like, it's not listening, right? And so I think there's so many, we could do a whole episode just on resources for how to be better leaders, how to be anti-racist, how to institute more equitable anti-racist policies. But I think to your point, the tolerance for bad behavior is going to be shrinking, I think, at an accelerated pace.
So I'll give you 2 examples of behaviors. So first of all, big thumbs up, Ev Williams, CEO, founder, owner of Medium, brings Colin Kaepernick onto his board. I just think it's the right thing to do. I believe that Ev's doing it for the right reasons. I don't think he was under any pressure to do it. I don't think there was any, do the right thing. So that's my thumbs up. In the I call bullshit category, there is this bizarre fiction that everyone seems to have bought, by the way, that Alexa Scordato can say now 7 days ago, I'm resigning from the board of Reddit. I'm stepping down, and I think the board should hire a Black board member. And 3 days later, magically, Mike Seibel from Y Combinator is on the board. Now, anyone who's been on any board of directors knows that the process of finding and vetting and background checking and then getting a deal done with a new board member is months of effort. Months. Even if it's someone you know, even if it's your best friend, you still have to do due diligence and then what they get paid. And so the fact that the board had already chosen Seibel and he'd already said yes, and then they let Alexis announce not the name of the new board member, but the fact that the board should pick someone and they could then heroically put a Black board member on. That's to me, I call bullshit number 1. And bullshit number 2 is, so here's Mike Seibel. He's being named the Black board member, which I think is strangely humiliating. And he doesn't come on and say anything about joining the board and racism on Reddit and what he's going to do about it and why he's joining and what he's going to do to make change. He literally just takes the token role, smiles and nods, and says not a word. Do I sound a little worked up? I'm sorry.
No, okay. I mean, I don't know these people. I don't know how their boards work, but I don't know. I have to root for Mike Seibel because I do think Reddit has a lot of work to do, and I would hope that his perspective and voice would actually be leaned on.
I'd love to hear his. I'd love to hear his voice.
Mm-hmm.
All my reporter friends out there with spare time, he'd be a great interview.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? By the way, the truth is, board members really don't control content at the platforms. I mean, they control hiring and firing and hitting your numbers. And anyway, enough. We've gone into my Reddit territory, which we don't need to do anymore. This has been really interesting. If you haven't read the crisis hotline story, text line story, you should read it. And we will be back next week with something lighthearted and frothy. Meanwhile, I'm going to go buy a Tesla.
All right. Oh, enjoy the solstice. Longest day of the year.
And sunny.
And first day of summer. Happy summer, everyone.
See you next week.